The day I decided to break up with Evelyn, there was a downpour. I had just gotten out of surgery. She held an umbrella next to me, walking quickly. She walked so fast she didn't even glance back, letting me get soaked by the rain. A wave of dizziness hit my post-op body, and I struggled to grab a nearby railing. Through the sheet of rain, she just tapped her watch, and her custom Italian heels stayed planted a few steps away from me, just standing there at a distance. Suddenly, I was just tired. In the 3 years we'd been together, she never once slowed down for me. I was always the one watching her back, hurrying to catch up. But just a few days ago, I'd seen her deliberately slow her pace while walking with her first love. There was nothing overly familiar between them, yet they seemed incredibly close, sharing a quiet warmth. Maybe in these 3 years, I had never been her favorite. Evelyn had no idea how exhausting it is to always be the one doing the chasing. So this time I decided to let go. As the late autumn evening wind blew past, the thermos in my arms was starting to get cold. I stood frozen, unable to move an inch. Right in front of me, Evelyn was walking shoulder to shoulder with a man on a path near the inpatient wing. She glanced to the side. Even in a fitted white coat, she stood out in a crowd. I'd seen that man before, in the photo album on Evelyn's phone. It was her first love, Ethan. Back then, she had just explained it away. We dated in college. He went to study abroad, so we broke up. Her tone was calm, without a ripple of emotion. But now, walking with him, her eyes were alive with feeling. There was nothing overly familiar between them, yet they seemed incredibly close, sharing a quiet warmth. I didn't know when Ethan had come back to the States, and I didn't want to know what he was saying to make the smile in Evelyn's eyes never fade. I only noticed one thing. When Evelyn walked with him, she deliberately slowed her pace. Evelyn was tall and naturally walked fast. When we walked together, she was always striding ahead of me. She never held my hand, never waited for me. But now, she noticed Ethan's slightly quickened breathing as they talked and laughed. She purposely adjusted her speed to match his slower rhythm. She was waiting for him. A fine, sharp pain spread through my chest. Over the past 3 years, I'd protested more than once, asking her to wait for me when we walked. She was always so cold, indifferent to my feelings, unconcerned with my thoughts. But she would always just pinch the bridge of her nose, her face a mask of exasperation and impatience. Leo, can you please stop being so unreasonable? Does walking fast mean I don't love you? If that's what you want to believe, then there's nothing I can do. Every argument ended the same way, brushed aside with the excuse that I was overthinking things. And I believed her half-hearted explanations, lying to myself for 3 whole years. Now, every deliberately slow step Evelyn took felt like a slap across my face. Maybe, in 3 years of dating, I was never the one she cherished. As they chatted, Ethan smiled and reached out to touch the watch on Evelyn's wrist. After all these years, you still have it. The silver watch gleamed coldly. Evelyn never let me touch that watch. The only time she'd take it off was when we were in bed, kissing and lost in the moment. She'd carefully place it on the nightstand. Otherwise, it never left her wrist. But now, she was letting Ethan trace the engraving on the inside of the band. I took a deep breath and looked up, trying my best to fight back the sting in my eyes. Evelyn finally caught sight of me out of the corner of her eye. Her expression froze for a second. She frowned, looking at the thermos in my arms. Leo, what are you doing here? It was just the 2 of us in her office. She had already sent Ethan away, an unconscious protective reflex. The window was open, and a cross breeze blew through. My eyes, still sore from crying, stung in the wind. After a brief silence, she turned around and sighed. Ethan and I are colleagues now. Don't read too much into it. I stayed quiet. Here's the borscht you wanted. If there's nothing else, I'm leaving. For a split second, Evelyn's face went blank. That I wanted? Didn't you specifically ask for it last night? The night before, on a whim, she had asked if I knew how to make borscht. I had no idea why, but I still found a video and carefully learned how to make it. Realization dawned on Evelyn's face, and she frowned. Ethan wanted some, He asked me if I knew anywhere that had good borscht. I was just asking. She turned away and casually picked up a work report from her desk, flipping through it as if I wasn't even there. She spoke nonchalantly. From now on, don't come to the hospital so much unless it's important. A crushing tightness squeezed my heart, making it hard to breathe. Suddenly, I couldn't pretend anymore. Stay away from the hospital? Is that so I don't interrupt you and Ethan getting back together? Like today? Leo. Evelyn's eyes turned to ice, and the hand flipping through the report froze mid-air. What is your problem now? She stared at me coldly, as if I were a stranger. Think whatever you want. There's nothing going on between Ethan and me. She was always so composed, rarely showing anger, but now she was losing her cool over Ethan. As we stood there in a standoff, Ethan pushed the door open, holding a stack of files. Evelyn, about tomorrow's surgery. He saw the tears welling in my eyes and feigned an apologetic confusion. Am I interrupting something? Seeing Ethan, Evelyn's expression visibly softened. Not at all. He's just leaving. I let out a bitter laugh and turned to go. Behind me, I heard their voices. Was that your fiancé bringing you lunch? Evelyn didn't say anything, but her silence was permission enough for Ethan to open the thermos. Borscht? Ethan raised an eyebrow, a flash of smug pleasure in his eyes. I haven't eaten either. Mind if I join you? Evelyn didn't respond. She just walked to the door, gave me one last heavy look, and closed it behind me. I went home alone. By the time I arrived, night had fallen. The huge house was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. I was standing by the window when my phone suddenly rang. It was a birthday message my dad had recorded for me before he passed. Leo, today is your 27th birthday. Dad wishes you a happy birthday. By my count, you and Evelyn have been together for 3 years now. Are you two married? Are you happy? Even though I'm not there, remember to always love yourself. My dad's warm voice echoed in the empty house. I hung up, a sharp sting in my nose. I met Evelyn through a setup. At the time, my dad was in the final stages of cancer, and his biggest regret was not seeing me settle down. I wasn't really in the mood for a relationship, I just wanted to make him happy, to go through the motions. When I met Evelyn, her cool, self-possessed demeanor convinced me this was just an act for both of us, something we were being forced into. But to my surprise, after our first meeting, Evelyn began to pursue me intensely. She knew my dad was sick, so she introduced me to good doctors, helped me decipher lab reports I couldn't understand, and taught me how to use massage to ease his pain. With her by my side, those long nights, warped by the smell of disinfectant, slowly started to feel hopeful again. During my dad's final moments, she confessed her feelings for me, promising to be good to me for the rest of our lives. I cried and nodded. Through my tear-blurred vision, I missed the placid calm in her eyes, as if she were just completing a mission. Not long after we started dating, she suddenly began staying out all night, becoming incredibly distant. That's when I found out about Ethan. Ethan, all the way across the ocean, had gotten back in touch with her. That night, she had a rare bout of insomnia. She leaned against the balcony railing, the red tip of her cigarette glowing in the dark. Then she posted something on her social feed, visible only to Ethan. I act tough, but I never said I wasn't willing to wait for you. Evelyn didn't get home until after midnight, bringing a damp chill in with her. The bedroom door was ajar. I kept my eyes lightly closed, pretending to be asleep. She didn't remember my birthday. Tossing her trench coat on the floor, she talked on the phone with a friend. I mean, you and Ethan were so in love back then, but you just had to break up. And now he's back, but you're about to get married. He clearly came back for you. What are you going to do? She leaned against the sofa, her silhouette stark and cold in the dim light. After a long silence, she finally spoke. I don't want to trap him in a marriage too early. He's a free spirit. He should see the world before deciding where to land. As for Leo, my breath caught. He's very domestic. My parents have always wanted me to settle down, so I did what they wanted. I went on the blind date and found the kind of domestic partner they were hoping for. I'm already engaged to him. The rest of my life is just going to be marrying him and having kids. I'll keep playing the part. Her voice was utterly flat, devoid of any emotion. Something inside me snapped with a clean, final break. Before, I would analyze every little thing, searching for proof that she loved me. Even though she always forgot my birthday, never waited for me when we walked, and rarely cared about my thoughts or feelings, I would always think back to her steady shoulder when I was at my lowest, the lingering warmth of her fingers brushing away my tears, her clumsy kiss the night we got engaged. I would always find reasons, make excuses for her. But now that the tidal wave of my affection had receded, I had to admit it. For her, so-called love was nothing more than a reluctant performance. She had never truly loved me. In this relationship, she was always in control, moving with calculated ease. And I was the one always running away from the truth, covering my ears and pretending to be happy. I ran a fever that night and didn't sleep well. When I woke up in the morning, the space next to me was already empty. Evelyn was in the entryway, adjusting the collar of her trench coat, her expression indifferent. The engagement ring she had taken off was tossed in a corner, glinting coldly. It hit me then that she hadn't worn it for days. She used to wear it to placate me. But from the day Ethan came back, the ring on her finger vanished, leaving only a fading mark. The difference between love and no love was so obvious. Evelyn looked back and saw me standing stunned on the stairs. On a strange impulse, she walked over and gently stroked my hair. For a moment, I felt a flicker of emotion, but it vanished the instant a notification popped up on her phone. It was a message from Ethan. "I'm off to work." I didn't snap out of it until I heard the roar of a car engine in the driveway. Suddenly, I felt so tired. For 3 years, this show of affection right before she left for the day was a daily routine. But I never actually felt any sweetness from it. It felt more like placating a business partner. In these 3 years, Evelyn hadn't been terrible to me. After we got engaged, she gave me her credit card to use as I pleased. She took care of all the major chores around the house so I wouldn't have to worry. If I casually mentioned wanting something, she would almost always agree. Everything seemed fine, except for one thing that was just wrong. It was all too polite, too formal. So formal that there wasn't an ounce of real feeling for me. It was all just going through the motions. She and Ethan had a past I could never be a part of, a chasm I could never cross. If there was no love, why keep holding on? Maybe letting go was easier than holding on. The autumn rain was relentless, carrying a bleak chill. My lower abdomen had been aching since I got to work this morning. Now, standing by the printer, I could barely straighten up. On the verge of passing out, I had to call Evelyn. But call after call went unanswered. It wasn't until a coworker called 911 for me and was helping me onto the ambulance that my phone finally dinged. It was a text from Evelyn. In a meeting, the message was short, concise as always, with no extra words of care or concern. Seemed she really was busy. At the hospital, the overhead lights streaked past my eyes. The sweat on my back had soaked the blue sheet on the gurney. I weakly opened my eyes. Just one glance was enough to recognize Evelyn. She was speaking in a soft, low voice, explaining a surgical case to Ethan, completely absorbed. They stood very close, Ethan intimately at her side. So, this was her meeting. As the gurney rolled forward, nearly bumping into Ethan, she instinctively pulled him behind her, shielding him. It wasn't until the hem of her white coat brushed against my dangling arm that she reflexively looked back. Shock flashed in her eyes, and her breath hitched. I gave a small, bitter smile and closed my eyes, not wanting to look at her anymore. When I came to, I was in a hospital room. Evelyn, tall and striking in her white coat, stood at the foot of my bed with her back to me. Sensing I was awake, she walked over, pinching the bridge of her nose. Her first words were an accusation. "What happened? You have appendicitis and you didn't even tell me?" Perhaps seeing how pale I was, her tone softened a little. "Don't you know this can be life-threatening if it gets serious?" I didn't look at her, just stared blankly at the ceiling. "You were in a meeting with Ethan." Evelyn froze for a second, then shoved her hands in her pockets, her face dark. "Ethan and I are not on the same path anymore. There's nothing going on between us. her brow furrowed with unconcealed annoyance and impatience. Leo, being this unreasonable all the time is getting really old. Evelyn was nowhere to be seen for days. A few days later, during morning rounds, it was Ethan who came to check on me. He held my chart, the silver men's watch on his wrist, a matching couple's watch to Evelyn's, clinking softly. "Mr. Davis, you're recovering well. You should be able to go home soon." He looked down to jot down my vitals, the pen scratching against the paper. "Evelyn drank too much at a get-together last night. I took her home. It's a shame, really. I was the one who had to remind her about her emergency meeting this morning." My hand, which had been searching for a moving company online, paused. I slowly looked up at him. "You must be very happy with Evelyn, right?" He snapped the chart shut, a strange curve to his lips. "Well, when we were together, she was so clingy and affectionate. Back then, if I even mentioned wanting some trendy new cake, she'd wait in line all night to buy it for me. If I had so much as a headache, she'd worry herself sick and want to rush me to the hospital. She even had to hold my hand while she was driving. Isn't that ridiculous?" It was ridiculous. Evelyn had given her best to Ethan. She would worry about him taking the crowded subway, nag him for not eating on time, and see a beautiful view and immediately think of taking him there on a trip. For me, there was only endless perfunctory coldness. Ethan stood up and gave me a slight smile, full of arrogance and triumph. "Once a woman gives all her love away, she can't love again. What can you do? Love is all about timing. Mr. Davis, you'll just have to bear with it." The day I was discharged, it started to rain. Evelyn came to pick me up. The car was parked in the surface lot. She stood under the eaves, holding an umbrella, waiting for me. As I got closer, she reached out to take my bag, but I dodged her. She froze for a moment, her thin lips pressed into a hard line. She opened her mouth a few times before finally speaking. "The State Department suddenly put together an expert panel a few days ago. I wasn't at the hospital." The umbrella suddenly tilted, and the curtain of rain cast a dark shadow over her face. I gave a faint aha and pulled my coat tighter around me, not bothering to ask about the night she got drunk and Ethan took her home. At this point, if she didn't want to bring it up, I no longer had any desire to know. Seeing my silence, the veins on the back of the hand gripping the umbrella handle bulged. "Are you really going to do this now?" I didn't answer her. I just felt tired. "Let's go." Evelyn walked as fast as ever. Just like always, she rushed ahead, oblivious to my struggle to keep up behind her. I gradually fell behind, and the rain quickly soaked through my clothes, a chill seeping into my bones. Evelyn still didn't notice my miserable state, her pace only quickening. I suddenly remembered the day she was walking with Ethan. Her deliberately slower pace for him, each step landing like a hammer blow on my heart. My body, still weak from surgery, was hit with a wave of dizziness, and my legs gave out. I struggled to grab a nearby metal railing, only to see that dozens of feet away, Evelyn had already reached the car and was adjusting her collar. The moment she looked up, she tapped her watch through the rain. "Hurry up. I have surgery this afternoon." And those feet, encased in custom Italian heels, remained firmly planted on the ground, a few steps away from me. I heard a faint shattering sound deep inside me, a bloody, broken mess that could never be put back together. She would never wait for me. She wouldn't even look back. My eyes had embraced the sight of her back countless times, only to chase after her alone after each moment of disappointment. But this time I didn't follow. I stood my ground, staring at her. I watched Evelyn's expression shift from calm indifference to a frown of confusion, and then to that familiar look of impatience. "Evelyn, this is it. Let's break up." I once heard someone say that when you don't know if you should continue a relationship, you should just look into each other's eyes, because eyes don't lie. And in my brief moment of eye contact with Evelyn, her eyes were like a dead, stagnant lake, without a single ripple. But I had clearly seen the shimmering light, the deep affection, in her eyes when she looked at Ethan. That kind of love is impossible to hide. So when she left me standing there again, looking at me with confusion, I truly had no desire to take another step forward. But this time, Evelyn finally knew to walk back toward me. Her steps were urgent. When she stood in front of me, her shadow blocked out all my light. Leo, what do you mean by that? What are you throwing a fit about now? I drove all night through a storm just to pick you up from the hospital. And I have back-to-back meetings this afternoon. I'm exhausted. Perhaps because I rarely raised my voice or argued with her. She was genuinely furious. What am I throwing a fit about? I held up my rain-soaked sleeve. Evelyn, in 3 years together, did you ever really love me? You never remember what I like. I hate cilantro, but every meal we ate together was covered in it. Just because Ethan likes it. You don't remember my birthday either. For 3 years, I've spent every single birthday alone, without so much as a happy birthday from you. But you make sure to send Ethan a message right at midnight on his birthday every year. And you couldn't care less about my feelings. You've never waited for me when we walk. I'm always stumbling to catch up to you. Even today, when I just had surgery, in the pouring rain, you wouldn't even look back for me. Through the rain, her perpetually cool and composed expression finally cracked. She stood there, holding the umbrella, silent for a long time. Evelyn, the person you love is clearly Ethan. So why were you so determined to marry me? What, were you planning to marry someone you don't love and then spend the rest of your life reminiscing about the one you do? Let me tell you something, Evelyn. That's disgusting. Who wants to be a tool for you to mourn your ex? Evelyn stared at me, stunned, as if she never expected me to say such things. The umbrella tilted for a second. The scales in her heart finally seemed to tip in my favor for once. After a long silence, she spoke slowly. Leo, you're just angry right now. I'm not going to take what you said today to heart. I'll wait for you to cool down. I didn't go home that night. My best friend, Alex, found me at a barbecue joint on the side of the road. Evelyn would never eat at a place like this with me. She said she was a germaphobe and thought these places were dirty. So for the 3 years we were together, I barely touched this kind of food. Not until Ethan bragged to my face about how Evelyn used to peel crawfish for him and ate with him at all the food stalls in their college town. That's when I realized it had nothing to do with being a germaphobe. Her preferences and exceptions were just never for me. Alex sat across from me, looking shocked and confused. You and Evelyn broke up? Are you sure about this? I couldn't blame him for his reaction. After all, when Evelyn first came into my life and helped me take care of my dad, I was so grateful and completely in love with her. Back then, I was terrified of losing my only family member and desperately needed someone to lean on. So later, when she let just a tiny bit of love slip through her fingers, I was completely captured. I took a swig of beer and looked at Alex seriously. Yeah, I told her it was over. Leo, are you sure you don't love her anymore? You won't regret it? I nodded firmly. There was a time when I loved her very much. The way she shone when we first met and her support during my darkest days sustained me through years of lonely pursuit. I tried so hard. But with Ethan around, I could never get into her world or see what was truly in her heart. Even at our most intimate moments, when she held me, her dark eyes held more resignation than passion, more loneliness. Because of it, I was constantly tearing myself down. I started secretly comparing myself to Ethan, competing with them in the shadows. In the end, all I got was a body full of scars. So I gave up. Evelyn is just too cold. She doesn't know how to love anyone. Dude, you were the one who got hurt in that relationship. Alex raised his beer bottle and clinked it against mine. Here's to my handsome friend Leo, finally ending his 3-year emotional entanglement. Today, right here, right now, he's finally, completely let it go. His eyes were sparkling. I smiled and clinked my glass with his. The bubbles burst fizzing in my mouth. And suddenly, I felt a sense of release. Life is short. Why waste it obsessing over something that was never mine? Here's to the past I'm not looking back to, and to a free tomorrow. On the way back, it started raining unexpectedly. My phone dinged. It was a text from Evelyn. It's 10 p.m. When are you coming home? Evelyn still thought I was just throwing a tantrum, as if my declaration of breaking up today meant nothing. After all, in her mind, she hadn't done anything wrong. She was just a little careless, a little lacking in day-to-day affection. She just had some work-related contact with her ex. It was just me being angry for a moment. I cooled down and everything would be fine. She never took my pain seriously, she just thought I was being unreasonable. I ignored her and swiped the message away. A few minutes later, she called. I didn't answer. She called again every few minutes. I almost had to laugh. Evelyn was always so calm and composed. Nothing I did ever seemed to faze her. But right now, she had stubbornly called me almost 10 times. When the last call came through, I picked up. Her first words were, "Where are you?" Her tone was urgent, as if she was genuinely worried. When I didn't respond, she seemed to catch herself and reverted to her usual accusatory tone. "Leo, are you drunk again? If you get wasted again this time, I'm not coming to pick you up." When I first found out about Ethan, I had a huge fight with her, broke up with her in a fit of anger, and then went to a bar to get drunk. But I was younger then, more hot-headed, and ultimately unwilling to let go. In the end, I pathetically called Evelyn and asked her to come get me. I remember it clearly. When she came to pick me up that day, her expression was calm and indifferent, but she had dark circles under her eyes. I hadn't come home, and she hadn't gone to sleep, waiting up until midnight. As I drunkenly collapsed onto her, choking out her name, I heard her whisper a very, very soft, "I'm sorry," into the wind. The cold wind filled my lungs. I let out a long breath and said to Evelyn on the other end of the line, "Evelyn, I already broke up with you today. I'm not coming back. In a couple of days, a moving company will come to get my things." There was a long silence on the other end. "Leo, are you serious?" "Of course. I'm dead serious." I hung up the phone, blocked her number, pulled my coat tighter, and disappeared into the stormy night. I rented a new apartment, a one-bedroom. It wasn't as luxurious as Evelyn's spacious high-rise apartment, but it was enough for one person. After the breakup, I suddenly had a lot more free time. Before, I was always busy after work learning to cook different things to please Evelyn's mother. Now, I had time to do things I actually enjoyed or hang out with friends. Evelyn's mother was a traditional and conservative housewife. She agreed to let me into the family because she saw how devotedly I cared for my father when he was sick. She thought I was reliable and easy to control. The first time we met, she hinted that after we got married, I should quit my job to be a stay-at-home husband and support my wife's career. So every weekend, I had to wake up early and drive 2 hours with Evelyn to the suburbs to see her parents. I had to listen to her traditional, conservative parents lecture me again and again. I had to listen to her mother criticize Ethan for being unreliable, for running all over the world instead of settling down. I really hated it, but because of Evelyn, I never pushed back. Thank God I was free now, physically and mentally free. No one could decide whether I stayed home or went out with friends after work. And no one could pull at my heartstrings and make me sad. This Sunday, for the first time in ages, I slept in until 10 a.m. But then the moving company called. "Mr. Davis, Ms. Vance says you have to come over in person. She won't open the door for us otherwise." Through the phone, I could hear Evelyn's cold voice. "Leo, even if you're moving out, the least you can do is show up and pack your own things. Otherwise, I'm not letting strangers into my home." When I got to Evelyn's place, she was leaning against the door, in a standoff with the movers. When she saw me, her gaze lingered on me for a few seconds. Then she shook her head slightly, her tone mocking. "Leo, what on earth did I do to you in these 3 years to make you block me so quickly? Now I have to go through someone else just to get a call to you?" We had lived under the same roof for 3 years, and Evelyn was still just as arrogant. She was cold, distant, like a stranger just passing through. Even now, she refused to lower her proud head. "Evelyn, if this is all you wanted to say to me, then we really don't need to talk." I walked straight past her into the apartment and motioned for the movers to come in. Evelyn pressed her lips together but didn't say another word, though her eyes followed my every move. She watched me direct the movers, telling them what to take. Several times, she looked like she wanted to say something. Her expression conflicted. The clothes in the closet went from a variety of styles to just simple business attire. The pots and pans I had bought for the kitchen disappeared one by one from the countertops. It wasn't until I started taking down the photo wall that Evelyn finally couldn't take it anymore. She stood in front of me, blocking my way, her height giving her an intimidating presence. "Leo, what are you doing? I'm in those pictures too. I don't agree to you taking them." Most of these photos were taken on important occasions. In the pictures, I was always smiling brightly, subconsciously leaning toward Evelyn. And Evelyn, for the most part, was just a cool profile with a hint of resistance. In 3 years, I couldn't count how many cold looks she had given me. Thinking about those miserable days left a shadow of fear. I didn't want to see them ever again. Evelyn was right. She was in the pictures too. I shouldn't take them. So, right in front of her, I tore my half off every single photo. One after another until the floor was covered in scraps. I was only taking myself with me. Evelyn was stunned. She grabbed my wrist, her voice tight. "Leo." Her eyes were red-rimmed. I yanked my hand away and gave her a sarcastic smile. "Evelyn, you never cherished our time together, so why get angry over some photos?" After I finished packing, the place was a mess. Evelyn's brow was furrowed, her face grim. But it didn't matter. I had already taken everything valuable. The expensive watches and cufflinks she bought me, I didn't leave a single one behind. I had already traded the best years of my youth for the hardest lesson. Between money and love, I had to have at least one. Before I left, I placed the apartment key gently on the table, and next to it I left the engagement ring. After our unpleasant last encounter, Evelyn didn't try to contact me again. The news of our breakup and called-off engagement spread quickly through our circle of friends. Everyone who heard was full of regret. After all, Evelyn and I had been together for 3 years and were already engaged. We were just one step away from marriage. Ethan, on the other hand, posted on his social feed the day after we broke up. "What's mine, you can never take away." When a mutual friend told me, I just thought it was pathetic. My friend was worried. 3 years of your life, completely wasted. All that effort for nothing. Aren't you afraid you'll regret it later? I shook my head. For the 3 years I was with Evelyn, I was constantly at war with myself. I was like someone on a sinking ship, in constant peril. Since the ship was already going down, it was better to get off early and cut my losses. I finally got away from a toxic person and a toxic situation. You should be happy for me. After all, you can't go through life carrying garbage, can you? I told my friend. My friend gave an awkward laugh. I found out later that he was a messenger sent by Evelyn. My words got back to her word for word. That day, she crumpled the paper she was writing on into a tight ball. But soon after, she looked out the window with a renewed sense of certainty. No, he'll be back. He can't handle living alone. He can't make it without me. Unfortunately for Evelyn, she was wrong. It's true that a big part of why I got together with her was because I couldn't stand the loneliness of living by myself. I grew up with just my dad, and he was my only support system. When he suddenly passed away, I lost the entire foundation of my life. I holed up at home for a long time. I'd turn on the TV just to fill the room with sound. An empty house is too quiet. The loneliness is deafeningly loud. I started desperately clinging to anyone who came near me, including Evelyn. It seems that after being alone for too long, you can slide into love. I hoped love could fill the emotional void in my life. I hoped I could find a sense of security, something to rely on in her. But the truth is, when I was with Evelyn, the loneliness I felt was even greater than what I had shouldered alone. Because I got so much more disappointment from that relationship. Now, I'm starting to re-evaluate my life as a single person. Starting to recognize my own importance. Starting to accept that loneliness is an unerasable part of life. Without the shackles of marriage, without the constraints of being the son-in-law to the Vance family, my life's possibilities have opened up. I quit my administrative job at her family's corporation. With my long-neglected certifications in hand, I found a new job in my field. Starting fresh meant I had to learn a lot from scratch, and I had to pour all my energy into it. Meetings, overtime, business trips, it was non-stop. But I didn't feel tired, because after all the hard work came visibly larger bonuses and a different kind of mental satisfaction. Half a month later, Evelyn found out I had left her family's company. I had just gotten home from work that day, and she was sitting on my doorstep, waiting. I had worked until 10 p.m., so she must have been waiting for a long time. It was turning into early winter, and she was only wearing a camel-colored cashmere coat. Under the lights, she looked fragile and thin. When she saw me, she immediately stood up and stumbled as she grabbed my arm. "Why did you quit?" She glanced at my modest apartment and frowned. "Is the salary not enough for you to live on? I can ask my father to double it." "That has nothing to do with it." I opened the door and blocked her when she tried to come in. "Evelyn, we've already broken up. It's not convenient to have you here." Evelyn let out a small, derisive laugh. "You hate me that much? You'd rather hole up in this tiny place, cooking for yourself, than come back with me? This place isn't necessarily worse than the Vance home." I looked at her sarcastically. At her family's house, I not only had to walk on eggshells around her and endure her cold shoulder, but I also had to sacrifice myself and give everything to the family, just as her mother demanded. Evelyn was a proud and intelligent person. She understood what I meant. Her face turned ashen. Without another word, she turned and left. That night, I received a text from an unknown number. It was from Ethan. It was a photo of Evelyn, her eyes hazy with drink, slumped in the leather back seat of a car. The light hit her sharply defined features from above, a few buttons on her collar undone. "I don't know why she's so sad today, but it's okay. Tonight, it's just us. Zero distance." I chuckled. "Thanks for being so eager to pick up my trash. By the way, being so blatant about your cheating, aren't you worried your girlfriend across the pond will find out?" Ethan called almost instantly, his voice raised. "Leo, what do you think you're doing?" At this moment, Ethan was panicking. A smile spread across my face as I pulled up the information my friend Alex had sent me. On the left was a picture of Ethan kissing his married, 40-something female advisor by the river in Cambridge. On the right was the paper he had published just before returning to the country, with data that was almost too perfect to be true. I imagine Evelyn would have no idea that the distinguished Dr. Ethan enjoys being the other man both here and abroad. Ethan's life story was quite something. In college, while dating Evelyn, he was never without luxury goods. But he ditched her without a second thought after graduation for the sake of his career. Abroad, he got involved with his advisor, who was over 40. He gritted his teeth through the gossip and managed to gain a lot of academic resources, making his path to a PhD incredibly smooth. But as exciting as a twisted romance can be, even Ethan got tired of being an old woman's lover. So he pulled some strings and got a cushy position at a top hospital back in the States. The same hospital where Evelyn worked. And he started things up with Evelyn all over again. "You think Evelyn will care?" His voice suddenly became shrill. 6 years ago, I was the one who dumped her. I paused deliberately. "Do you think she'll find it harder to be dumped or to be deceived?" "Mr. Hayes, you love collecting trash so much. I'll let you have it. But if you have the gall to bother me again, I can't guarantee these photos won't end up in your hospital's inbox." After that warning, Ethan never provoked me again. Maybe he was scared, or maybe he had a guilty conscience. But I didn't dwell on such a minor incident. After bringing some good results to the company, they started to value me more, including me in important projects. Late one night, after a dinner meeting filled with toasts and networking, it was over. My senior colleague and I saw the last client into their car. When the dust settled, I was the only one left in the night wind, along with a beautifully wrapped gift box in my hand. I rubbed my sore ankles and turned to go home. A familiar Audi R8 drove up from a distance and stopped in front of me. The window rolled down, revealing a woman's refined, elegant profile. It was Evelyn. Her eyes were fixed on the gift box in my hands. She stared for a long moment before speaking, her voice laced with ice. "Who gave you that?" I smiled. "None of your business." Evelyn stared at me, her gaze turning dark and speculative. "Leo, is this the reason you refused to come back? Don't you think you owe me an explanation? We only broke up a month ago." I was both angry and amused. "Are you insane? Not everyone is like you, getting tangled up with an ex while still in a relationship." Evelyn's face was cold as she unbuckled her seatbelt, walked over, and grabbed my wrist. Her brows were tightly knitted. Leo, Ethan, and I never crossed any lines. We never had any physical relationship after we broke up, and I didn't cheat. I always considered you my fiancé. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Never crossed any lines? Evelyn, do you take me for a fool? Were your intimate displays at the hospital not enough? Or is the fact that you were with Ethan both times you got drunk not strong enough evidence? In the 3 years we were together, there was no care, no affection, just a cold, business-like distance. And now you're going to stand here and hypocritically say you always thought of me as your fiancé? Don't you think that's laughable? Evelyn faltered, her eyes dimming. She finally softened her tone. Ethan means nothing to me emotionally anymore. I stopped loving him a long time ago, and I have absolutely no intention of getting back with him. But regardless, I hurt you. I can't deny that, and I apologize. Her gaze darkened. Seeing her apologize to me, bow her head to me for the first time, made her look somewhat pathetic. As for you saying I didn't care for you, it was my fault for not remembering your birthday or your preferences. It was my fault for not waiting for you when we walked. But Leo, I didn't know how to love before, and I let you down. I know now, and I know how to love you. Leo, please come back. That home isn't a home without you. We lived together for 3 years, how can you just leave? She gripped my shoulders, looking at me with a desperate, pleading expression, her eyes red. This was the first time I had ever seen Evelyn so discomposed, so proud, and yet for the first time her face was a picture of defeat. Even the belt of her trench coat was tied crookedly. For Evelyn, this was a major flaw. How ironic. When I was with her, trying everything to please her, she watched with cold indifference, ignoring me. Now that I've left, she regrets it. Too little, too late. I pushed her away forcefully. Evelyn, it took a lot for me to move on. I'm not going back. After that, I didn't see Evelyn for quite some time. I only heard from mutual friends that she had been very down lately. She often came to work smelling of alcohol. She wouldn't go out after work, preferring to shut herself up at home alone. Leo, Evelyn hasn't been able to move on since you two broke up. She still has very strong feelings for you. She cares about you a lot. I found that laughable. People who have a clear conscience in a relationship move on quickly after a breakup. It's only those who wrong someone else who are consumed by regret and can't move on. That's not deep love. That's just being a terrible person. As for this caring they talked about, it probably only existed in Evelyn's empty words. If she truly cared, how could she have constantly disregarded my feelings, letting me drown in my own hurt? How could she have strode ahead while I trotted to keep up behind her? How could she have been completely oblivious to whether I was tired, if my shoes were comfortable, or if I could even keep up? But Evelyn didn't have much time to wallow. The news about Ethan being the other man blew up. That day, the story of Ethan being his female advisor's lover abroad while simultaneously having an affair with Evelyn and interfering in someone else's relationship went viral. Within 2 hours, it was the talk of the internet. One day he's this woman's lover. The next he's in someone else's bed. Does this guy just love being the other man? They're both trash. If you're going to be a home wrecker, you obviously have no shame. He's probably used to the insults by now. That female doctor is pathetic too. What a mess. Suddenly, Ethan and Evelyn were at the center of a media storm. After the drama subsided, the cheating advisor had her teaching license revoked and was fired. Ethan was investigated by the university, had his degree rescinded, his internship terminated, and was kicked out of the hospital. And Evelyn, her reputation ruined by the public scandal, was forced to resign. After the storm passed, my friend Alex came to see me. Was that online stuff you're doing? Awesome. I shook my head. Dude, you're still too soft. He was indignant. Those two were so disgusting, especially that Ethan guy, seducing a married woman and then provoking you to your face. You shouldn't have let them off so easy. I smiled faintly. I may not have orchestrated the online mob, but I did mail the photos of Ethan and his advisor to her husband. He had a right to know the truth. Kindness is my nature, but I won't be walked over. I knew from the beginning that I couldn't stir up much trouble on my own. After all, I had been a low-level admin at the Vance Family Corporation for 3 years with no connections. Any news I released would probably have been suppressed by them immediately. But the advisor's husband was different. He came from a powerful family, was a respected figure in academia himself, and had extensive connections. When faced with his wife's infidelity, he would not be merciful. 6 months later, thanks to my excellent performance, I was promoted to manager and was about to transfer to another city. The day I left, the sky was clear and bright. Evelyn, whom I hadn't seen in a long time, suddenly appeared at my door. After 6 months, she looked much more worn out. "What are you doing here?" Her gaze fell on the suitcase in my hand, a bitter smile reaching her eyes. "I heard you were leaving. I came to see you off." She reached out to take the suitcase from my hand. I politely took half a step back. "I can manage on my own." A look of disappointment was clear on Evelyn's face. She came to stand next to me again, walking shoulder to shoulder, just like a long, long time ago. Except this time, she finally remembered to slow down, as if she were deliberately waiting for me. But this time I sped up, walking ahead of her, leaving her standing there in a daze. I looked back, gave her a wave and said, "This is far enough. The person I am today is no longer obsessed with being loved, no longer relies on others to dispel loneliness, and no longer fears loss. I don't care if she waits for me anymore. I don't need a woman to slow her pace for me, because I will work hard on my own, walk ahead of her, and go see my own mountains."